you just cut him loose and let him go sign somewhere else.
Right, that's something that's kind of beyond what most teams would possibly do, to sign somebody to such a giant deal and to have it come down to the end like that, where he's giving you really almost no production. To give me almost no production that's worth that amount of money, to the point where you might as well just, cut it loose and just get him off the team from that standpoint.
And these cats, they'll try to tell us, Jeff, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I'm just saying, in general, these cats in baseball try to tell us that these teams ain't got no money and they're losing money and they've got to go with their budget salaries. And I know people right now are, well, it's true. It's only true because they want it to be true, because they're just controlling how much their profits are. Because when we're sitting here talking about Owen Cat's $91 million and maybe he can get himself into 30 or 40 games this season as a DH like A-Rod, or should we just cut loose this guy and pay him $60 million to go play for somebody else? Like, don't tell me that all of you aren't swimming in money as organizations, and we're the silly suckers for buying into this and spending time talking about sabermetrics when they're just writing checks and cashing them, brother.
Right. I mean, there's the amount of money that's going into the sport from TV is just getting bigger and bigger, not just from a national standpoint, but from a local standpoint with teams like the Dodgers. So really nobody at this point needs to be crying poverty except us, the fans, when it comes time to pay for tickets.
Well, I know. That's the thing that gets me at the end of the day, man, is even if you want to argue all the other points about free enterprise and everything else and how teams make bad deals, I'll give you that. Bad businesses make bad deals all the way across. But the lack of equity in a sport that would allow teams to make $60 million mistakes and just cut them loose. And there's teams out there that don't have $60 million payrolls. That's right. That's where the inequity is too much.
That's right. It's strange. It would be interesting to see what baseball would be like with about a 20-year period where there is a salary cap, just to see how. Obviously, it would be remarkably different. But it's just that baseball is kind of really sticking out like a sore thumb in that it doesn't have a salary cap. When you have the situation where the big market teams really get to dominate, they get to make these kinds of expensive mistakes, and the teams like the Royals, have to wait for this lightning in a bottle once every 30 years type of thing where they can compete. And even if they don't necessarily win, like Tampa Bay did as well. So it's just really a huge amount of financial inequity that we've talked about a lot, of course, but it's just funny how that just dominates the landscape of baseball. When we were kids, it seemed like this wasn't a big deal. It would just seem like, well, which team is the best team and who's got the best player?
Right, absolutely. By the way, I got a message. Somebody asked, well, why would Philly not trade him? Why would they have to cut Ryan Howard? They still have him for years. The reason that they may have to cut him is twofold. Number one, he is quickly eroding into a DH type of player only, and he plays in the National League where the DH doesn't exist, so he starts to cause you limitations in the field there as well. But more than that, is in the first month of this season coming up, but it's right at the early part of this season, he gets full no trade rights for the rest of his career. He'll get the 10 and the 5. So he'll be able to veto any trade that the team tries to make after, I believe it's the end of April, after like the first month of this season. So all of a sudden, he picks and chooses. So you may be able to find a trade for him, but if he doesn't want to go to Toronto or Cleveland or wherever that city is, Oakland, then, well, not Oakland, but you know what I mean. If he doesn't want to go there, then he can say no. So you have to either trade him, you can control it up until April, or let him loose, because at that point, then he becomes even more of an albatross and you still owe him $30+ million.
And it would seem like if I were him, I would probably want to take a trade to just about anybody, even if it is a not-so-great team, simply because things obviously aren't working out in Philadelphia. Things aren't going to magically get better, and, the team is obviously trying to get rid of you, and that's just a bad situation to be in. It almost seems like I don't see why he would exercise a no trade clause, again, unless it is for a team like Oakland.
Well, I mean, he was very, obviously highly loved there. He was a huge hitter. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he was, very, very, very high level in those late 2000s, man. And he is a picture-perfect DH to me. I mean, that's what guys in his position do nowadays. They go to the American League where all they have to do is bat and they can still rake the ball. And he is able to still, I think he could go to an American League team, DH only, and he could probably get that batting average up a few points by only focusing on DH. He could probably be a 235, 240, 25, 30 home run DH in the American League. So there's definitely a place for him to play, but I think it's in the American League.
Right. It's amazing how much the DH, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's, really artificial and just a terrible thing for the sport of baseball, or whether you just accept it as something that's here and it isn't really going away. It's amazing what it can do to, extend people's careers. I mean, you look at a guy like Edgar Martinez for the Mariners. I mean, he had only played third base for maybe about 5 or 7 years, and he just settled into a DH for the rest of his career, and he may be one of the few people who possibly makes it into the Hall of Fame someday, primarily as a DH. So somebody like Howard would definitely benefit from that, simply because you cut out half of the game, really, and you can just, rest up your body and just concentrate on slugging it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I see Bruce in the chat room. He just distracted me there at the end. He said you can be Nick Swisher and make $30 million. There you go, man. Hey, stop it. Nick Swisher's a good guy. We're not. Shh. We love Nick Swisher over here on the Sports Fix. You're listening to the Sports Fix. J-Rock, Jeff Gorman talking a little bit about hot stove, baseball stuff going on here. Indians, things slow. I do expect, as we see in the next few weeks, some of the bigger pitchers and stuff still to come off the market. See another thing or two from the Indians. I saw Hoynesy the other day talking about Indians prepared to trade from their positions of depth, from the middle infield spots, from their bullpen. They've got a lot of relief options. There's teams looking for help in the bullpen as well. Indians feel that they have some good trade matchups, so we'll see about that as the next few weeks go. And then, as you said, what are we like? What's 65, 70 some days from spring training or so? So it'll be here before you know it, and it really does come quick after you get past the first of the year. It just seems like next thing you know, there's pictures of the trucks being packed up. So before you know it, we'll be tossing some baseballs around, my friend. And in the meantime, we can talk about how much, David Blatt loves LeBron James and all those other cool things that happen here in Cleveland from time to time. Speaking of things in Cleveland, while I got a couple of minutes with you here, I've got Doug Plagens joining us in just a few minutes, but I wanted to shift gears and talk about the Browns. Of course, Ray Farmer this morning, Mike Pettine yesterday addressing the media, having their end-of-season wrap-ups. A lot of interesting comments all the way around. Things you can see that were said, that weren't said, as far as how are you going to deal with Johnny Manziel, Josh Gordon, Justin Gilbert to a smaller degree. Are you going to cut guys, trade guys, move guys? A lot of cliches, a lot of separating from the situation. What I read between the lines from what Ray Farmer said today is I'm 100% positive Josh Gordon will not be a member of this team. Not only will he not be a member of this team next year, I don't know that he'll be a member of this team by next month, to be honest with you. I do think that Ray Farmer has already made up his mind that they'll be parting ways with Josh Gordon. The way he specified several times that Josh will be the first one to know when we make our decision, just the way he said it leads me to believe that is a conversation that will probably take all of 10 minutes in the room, and that will be, can we trade him? If they feel they can trade him, then they may. If not, then they will outright cut him. But I do think that they know they need to make an example. And the crazy thing is that to me, the guy with more talent and potential is Gordon over Manziel, but Ray Farmer didn't draft Josh Gordon, and Ray Farmer drafted Johnny Manziel. So if somebody is going to be an example, and if somebody is going to get a second chance, it's going to be the guy that he drafted and not the other guy. But it was very interesting to hear his comments about Manziel as well. He kept referring to his college success as why he feels there's still a chance, although no longer did Ray Farmer say Johnny Manziel will be a dynamic player in this league. He now said he still believes that he could turn into a solid starter in this league. We have already lowered the expectations for it, but a whole lot of we'll let you guys know more. And he was getting peppered too, Ray Farmer, with Johnny Manziel's in Miami partying for LeBron's birthday. All right, because last night, Johnny, social media genius, posted an Instagram of himself at a club in Miami wishing LeBron James happy birthday. And then he put in the caption of the photo, no alcoholic beverages were used in the making of this video, kind of tongue-in-cheek to the media. But the simple fact that you stood in front of the media just a few days ago and gave the speech that you did, then all the things that happened this weekend, and then, again, you can't stop a guy from doing that, but that tells you everything you need to know about the level of responsibility and where he's going to be at. He can tell you, he conned you into drafting him. He convinced you all season long that he was going to work harder, and he's doing the same con job now that he did back at the draft. One team fell for it then, and as you said in free agency, Jeff, only one team needs to be convinced that Johnny Manziel can get a second chance somewhere else. But hey, I will say that I don't think the Browns are coming into next season with him in their plans to be the starter. I do think that they'll continue to try to develop Manziel, but I found the Hoyer comments interesting from both Manziel and Pettine. And then I'll turn it over to you for your thoughts on all of this. As far as, you can tell Mike Pettine absolutely, has a lot of appreciation for Brian Hoyer, but they both made very similar comments as far as, and I'll tell you, the ball's in Brian Hoyer's court. Ray Farmer very clearly said today that he would like to have Brian Hoyer back, and that's a conversation that he intends on having, but Brian Hoyer has to want to come back in order for that to work, and we have to agree on value, and that means how much money does Brian Hoyer want? If they can agree on that, like it or not, that kid will be coming back with the Browns next season. But if he gets a better offer somewhere else, I have no doubt that Brian Hoyer will go somewhere else and get an opportunity to start somewhere else, because he said yesterday, as much as he'd like to come back to the Browns, that he has no interest after being a starter in going back onto the bench if he doesn't have to.
That's right. Well, the good news for Hoyer is that if he came back, he almost certainly would be the starter, because the one good thing about this is that we've learned about Manziel that he's not ready to start. And that was the big distraction, the big, controversy in preseason as well, who's going to be the starter. And it really prevented Hoyer getting all the first-team reps and this guy's the starter. I think we now certainly know that Manziel, nor Connor Shaw for that matter, is really in the running to be the starter. And it might not be a bad thing to have those two guys be the number 2 and 3 quarterbacks and battle it out. Right now, I think Shaw would probably be a better number 2 quarterback. So really, it's going to be a matter of if Hoyer comes back, of course he's going to get a lot of money, and of course he's definitely going to be the man. He's going to be the starter, unequivocally. So it's just going to be a matter of, do the Browns look at Hoyer as a guy who is peaked, or as a guy who you can take the 7 games that he won and sort of recapture what he did well in those games and build on it, so you could possibly maybe win 9 or 10 games next year. But the big fly in the ointment there is now you've got all the other teams out there who need a quarterback. They're all going to swoop in, and they're going to look at Hoyer and say, yeah, Hoyer had some good games for the Browns. I remember watching him. They came back and the Browns won, and it was great. I don't know what happened to him at the end of the year, but he's shown he can win, and he's certainly better than whoever we have now. This is some other NFL teams talking, and so his value is going to go up. And the Browns might have to pretty much. I wouldn't say break the bank, but they might need to pay a little. Hoyer's getting pretty good market value here, no matter who he goes with.
Right, absolutely, and again, it'll be interesting how these decisions go, because Ray Farmer was very open about turning over all rocks when it comes to quarterback, bringing back Hoyer, bridging one season, and that's it. When you say how do they view him, has he peaked, I think they would view him plain and simple as the same way they were supposed to view him this year until everything changed with the drafting of Manziel. And, I found something very telling that Ray Farmer said about the drafting process as well. I wanted to bring that up in a minute. But, the bridge from one to the next. I continue to say, and this is a very conservative regime, you can tell. Mike Pettine's a conservative, defensive-minded coach. Ray Farmer appears to be a conservative type of general manager as far as the type of game plan and playing that they like, the style. So, that being said, I can see them trying to think of the way that I'm trying to say